Welcome to Alchemy's energetic forecast for January 2024. This is our first forecast for this year, and we are very excited to be here. My name is Melanie, and I am joined today by Alana. We will be utilizing all different types of modalities today to anchor in some of the intuitive and energetic readings. We'll be looking at the astrology, some of the gene key pulse that's going on, as well as tarot spreads, and anything else that shows up in the intuitive, energetic zeitgeist that is existence. Alana, hello, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm excited about this. Alchemy is all about the holistic nature of life. And this forecast, like you said, we're bringing in so many different modalities. I think it's going to be really fun that we do these each month and tie them back to our year ahead forecast. And we're already seeing the magic there, and I'm excited to share.
I think the most important thing, personally, I believe, to cover is that it's Capricorn season. And that means it's my birthday.
Happy birthday!
Yes, and happy birthday to all of the other fellow Capricorns out there. Of course, the sun is in Capricorn from December 21st to January 21st, so it's been Capricorn season for a while, and we see that represented on the world stage with a lot of our intentions around New Year's resolution. It is such a Capricorn thing, this energetic movement of starting fresh, getting a plan, looking forward, setting goals, setting intentions. I personally love it because I have a lot of Capricorn placements, but this is very much the vibe for this time of year.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's amazing how the astrology aligns with something just so natural, such as, like you said, New Year's resolutions. We all do that, whether subconsciously or like, hey, it's a new start to a new year. I need to make some changes. So I love that that's shown there.
It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, the habit or the astrological placement? Of course, Capricorn rules over things like structure, legacy, executing a plan, consistent forward motion in general, obviously work and career, but it's not all they are. This energy is, perfect for this time of year for setting intentions. It is also the main focus for January. We have so many planets moving in and out, transiting Capricorn. There is, as well as the sun being in Capricorn, of course, there will be a new moon in Capricorn this month as well. This new moon is going to be occurring, I believe, on January 11th. And this is kind of right after Mercury and Neptune have a little square off there, which I'll get into in a little bit here. But Capricorn new moon, on top of just going through the new year, is a incredible time for more intention setting and more, I would almost say, fine tuning of the intentions that we have set in the new year. So the new moon associations, if you are not someone who's worked with the lunar phases before, is all about planting seeds. And then, of course, you have Capricorn, who is all about plans and goals and intentions and legacy and structure and building and moving forward. Very earthy, very practical. And it's Capricorn season, so you're doubling down. And it's the new year, so you're doubling down. So this is like pinnacle planning, goal setting energy.
Love that. Yeah. And I also think it's important to note too is like when we look at the gene keys, the first gene key starting out this year is the shadow of struggle. And so that could be like, you can relate that to anything that's going on in your life. And I think separating out this like idea of like what we're creating and whether it comes from ego or it comes from a place of like external is like, you know, setting intentions from your highest alignment within yourself and like what that actually looks like. And I think you had mentioned some aspects that kind of like support that as well in the beginning of this year, especially.
For sure. That struggle shadow moves into the gift frequency in the gene keys of perseverance. And if there is a word, like in a nutshell, that can encapsulate some of the Capricornian energy we're going to be experiencing at the beginning of January, it would be perseverance. Their slow and steady movement forward is very relatable to perseverance. The having a dream, seeing a vision, and then getting into the nitty gritty about how you're going to make that happen. What are the real life 3D steps to bring me into alignment with the world life goal I'm trying to achieve? That can be a fine tuning moment that requires perseverance for sure. It is interesting too that we have Mercury coming direct at the beginning of January on the 3rd of January. Mercury goes direct, I think, on the 13th. It was the 13th of December, right? So
retrograde,
December 13th. Yeah, sorry. Goes retrograde on December 13th and is retrograde through 2 signs. So this is not this doesn't always occur. So it adds a little bit of extra chaos. Mercury entered into its retrograde phase when it was in Sagittarius, and then it switched into Capricorn while being retrograde. When Mercury is in retrograde, of course, Mercury rules over things like the intellect, communication, memory, transportation. And when it's retrograde through Sagittarius, it gives us a really clear opportunity to slow down and do some self-reflecting, which is a good moment of time at the end of 2023 before we move into 2024 to do some self-reflection. So try not to associate Mercury retrograde with everything's going to crap. I know that's a tendency we have. Retrograde, right? Everyone's like, oh, Mercury retrograde is the reason my life is the way it is. It's not. I mean, it might
like
be
that
if I feel that way.
I like that
It's
reframe.
not.
Yeah.
It's important because it's just a call to slow down. It's not negative per se, right? We talk about this a lot, but the inclination of polarity, like good and bad. Mercury retrograde is not bad. What it does is it makes you not move forward fast. So then you have an opportunity to slow down and do inventory, which is perfect at the end of 2023, right? So Sagittarius rules over things like our growth, our spiritual expansion, growth being it could be like things like travel on the 3D, like all of your adventures, your outward seeking, but also your inward seeking, your higher knowledge, your pursuit of understanding of things beyond you, right? So it is a great time to reflect on like, how have you grown this year? And then you have an opportunity when Mercury moves from Sagittarius into Capricorn, you have an opportunity to plan on how you need to reevaluate some of the plans or the structure that had supported that growth in 2023. When Mercury goes retrograde and shifts into the Capricorn area of the sky, it's a good time to be like, okay, what structures didn't support that growth? What worked really well for that growth? So there's a lot of that energy, and it does, I will admit, increase some of the chaos of Mercury retrograde when it moves from Sagittarius to Capricorn. Being in two signs, you do have two separate energies that are being reevaluated and paused in a way.
Deep reflection for sure. I definitely feel that way about Mercury retrograde, and I feel even like the shift that occurred as we went into Mercury retrograde is like, yeah, it's kind of a little frustrating to not be moving forward quite the same, but like you said, that opportunity to really go within and see and reflect. And I like that you said to reflect upon like what you have created. I think the tendency a lot of the time is to reflect and see like could be all that's still wrong in your life, which also is like maybe not a bad energy to bring in as we go into January to reflect on what we can actually shift and create these like, you know, and utilizing this first month of the year to really plan, like you said, and to get meticulous about like where we're moving forward and that like bigger vision and what seeds we're planting for like the whole year, really, right? Like this Capricorn season's like this one time, and this is a beautiful time to really do that. And if we do that right, and also remember that this isn't just like a for now energy, but this is like setting these pieces in motion during this time will really serve you for the majority of your year. And I love the like that first gene key of that like 38th gene key. And I know like you have this gene key as a Capricorn is like that like dilemma of habit and like, you know, the repressive nature of defeatist and then like the reactive nature of being aggressive. And so it's like finding that balance and like creating new habits and how to set that stage really right in that balanced place.
Yeah, I feel so seen. Well, it's a good point though, because this is a trap that happens a lot with resolutions, right? Like why do most people not complete their resolutions? So they overcommit and they don't realize the mental strength and habitualness that needs to be put into place in order to achieve some of those massive intentions. Like sometimes our New Year's intentions can be like, I'm going to make 30,000 in 3 months or whatever, right? Like they can get really outlandish, and it's a good opportunity for us to pivot the way we create those intentions and look at deciding on what small habits need to be put into place that will move us towards the ultimate goal. And I think that is a huge gift that Capricorn has, and it is a huge gift that the 38th gene key has with that perseverance. It is slowing down enough and looking at those tiny steps that move us in the right direction. That's perseverance. That's like the long game, right? And that is something that Capricorn is really known for, which is why the 38th gene key, and it is so closely related, obviously. But yeah, it's a beautiful syncing up of those types of qualities. And this is, I think, really doubled down in the astrology this year, because while Mercury stations direct coming into January on the 3rd, Jupiter also goes direct on the 1st. And later on in January, Uranus goes direct as well on the 28th, I believe. So we have a lot of forward motion starting to occur in January. And if we get too far ahead of ourselves, if we haven't done that reflection period, it can be a bit of a snowball effect. So there's a bit of a warning to that too. Like, we've been stuck and going really slow, or kind of maybe been in struggle and perseverance for a long time, that when this starts to ease up a little bit, we start to feel like we have an opportunity to move. We can start moving in like wrong directions or we get really excited and we just like, oh, this makes sense, I'm going over here, just to not be in that liminal space, in that uncomfortable space. Mercury stations direct on the 3rd, but it does square, I was going to say unfortunately, but it does end up squaring Neptune. So when it squares Neptune, Neptune rules over illusion, fantasy, some people say lies, but I don't think it's usually that like nefarious. It's just more the subconscious, dreams. It is not clear. And I have this analogy in my mind when I imagine the beginning of January. It's like we've been in Mercury retrograde, we're wandering through the forest, and it is densely foggy. We can't see anything, like a foot in front of us, and we're just doing our best. We're looking at what we've got, the tools we have, we're trying to make our way through the forest, and it's a bit of a struggle. It requires perseverance. And then okay, we start to move into January, we're switching, we're getting a bit of a plan, we're looking forward, we station direct, and the fog begins to clear. Mercury can at least see like 10 feet in front of itself instead of like 2 feet. So there's like, okay, I got some perspective. I can see a little bit of what's going on. But then it's like, boom, it squares Neptune on the 9th, I believe. And it's like we've been deprived of oxygen, or we've been like lost in the foggy forest for too long, that we start like hallucinating bright, sunny pathways out of the forest. We're like, oh, I can see it's clearing over there, I'm going that way. And we maybe get a little bit excited and lose that centering and that anchoring of like what our mission actually is. And we just want the heck out of the forest. So we grab onto the first opportunity that's presented to us. And with Neptune involved, that could be completely an illusion, a fantasy, a misdirection, something subconscious coming up, a random dream, someone else's dream. And you can just kind of stumble into going way further down a path that has nothing to do with what you're trying to achieve or doesn't serve you in the long run. So there is that moving forward energy of Mercury going direct, but then it is quickly followed by Mercury squaring Neptune, and that can definitely be confusing. So in this period, in the beginning of January, there's a lot of things going on. My big key thing would be take it slow, don't get ahead of yourself, and don't get desperate to get out of the foggy forest.
Oh, that's so true. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I could see this like intuitively kind of coming up. I'm seeing like a lot of the words that you're using. We've got like the gene key 41 in this month of, you know, the shadow of fantasy, and the gift is moves into his anticipation, and then the city's emanation. But then we've also got limitation, realism, and justice, psychosis, inspiration, sanctity, greed, aspiration, ascension. And so it's like, it's kind of like you can see kind of a theme here, and it almost like brings to mind for me almost like what's going on in the world stage too, not just internally, but like, you know, some of the chaos that's been happening is like maybe there's going to be, you know, some big shifts in the collective as well.
Yeah, huge shifts in the collective as well, which, I mean, we have quite a few. It becomes Aquarius season, right? So on the 21st, the sun moves from January into, on the 21st of January, the sun moves from Capricorn into Aquarius. And that is a big shift between an earth sign into an air sign. And if you look at the associations of Aquarius, it's all about community. It's all about grassroots movement is like one of the first things that comes to mind. Being an autonomous individual, but also concerned with the collective. It is a very intelligent sign that has great capacity, but also is the water bearer, holds the emotion. It's kind of like the joining of a few worlds of how do we have this leadership or this movement to the future. It's very futuristic, while maintaining the container of emotions and of compassion. And there's a lot of opportunity coming up to have the world stage shift even more. Yay. Before I get too far down that pathway, I'm going to tie up what we're doing with the moons. I feel like I glossed over it a little bit, But after we come out of that foggy forest, because I don't want to forget that there's an opportunity here as well, once Mercury squares Neptune, we're on the other side of that, which will be mostly in the clear after the 11th. Of course, there's residual energies. Mercury will be in shadow for a while. But roughly after the 11th, you're going to be presented with an opportunity to really solidify the intentions that were made when you were in that forest of confusion, because New Year's happens right in the middle of Mercury being retrograde and all of this confusion and all of a mental pause. I don't want to just say confusion, like it's really just you're sat in the middle of all of your thoughts, right? And we both know that if we have an untrained mind or if we're not in the best place, that can be daunting. There's just a lot of things going on in the mental realm when Mercury is retrograde. There's a lot of things to consider during this time of year period. But after all of the dynamics with Mercury are just out of the way, we've made it out of the forest, you are presented with that new moon in Capricorn, which happens on January 11th. So this is like a great time to set an intention on New Year's and give it a bit of a trial run until the 11th. And then come the new moon on Capricorn, you can rededicate, hone in, and refine those intentions, and then solidify them in for the rest of the year moving forward. So it's a kind of like a fun play field where you have a new intention on New Year's, and then you can sit with it, see how it goes, mull it over for a week and a bit, try it out. Can I maintain these habits? And you can do a bit of a reevaluation and then rededicate to that intention, set it for the year to come with the new moon in Capricorn, because like I said earlier, it's that pivotal new year energy, right? We have that. It's a perfect culmination of all of that goodness. So that's a fun opportunity to keep in mind.
I love
There's
that.
hope,
Like how
basically.
often do you get like that kind of trial run? And I like that you can kind of view it like a trial run, like you said, and really ground and be like, yeah, like, is this feasible? Is this doable? Is this actually what I want? Or is it in alignment with me? You can kind of question that and realign a little bit more if you need to too, right? And set some really strong intentions on that date.
It's Capricorn is the slowest of the cardinal signs. So I don't want people to be daunted, like, oh, I'm still in the thick of it when it comes to January. It's like, no, we do have planets going direct. Energy is starting to move. We have shifts. The light at the end of the tunnel is here. Some things, there's more movement happening. You're just not off to the races, which I know a lot of people really want to be off to the races. Comes January of a new year, you really want to just like hit the ground running. You might be running in a random direction. So it's just using a little bit of like that time aspect of taking it slow, one step in front of the other, having a plan, sitting with your options in that mental realm before you commit to creating it in the 3D realm. And I think that new moon, January 11th in Capricorn, is a good time to start getting a bit clearer on what commitments you're actually making.
Love that. Mark your calendars.
Yeah, no doubt. That ties up, I think, a lot of the beginning of January with all of those Mercury dynamics, but Aquarius does show up into the field come January 21st.
Yeah, and I think that we see that a lot in the 60th gene key in the pulse that week, which is the shadow of limitation, the gift of realism, and the city, which is like the highest potential, is justice. And we have the dilemma of balance, which is more on like also like in the dilemma of balance in form, the energy like in your body and physicality, and the like kind of ways that it can show up either repressed or reactive is going to be either unstructured or rigid.
That is Aquarius vibes for sure. We have on the 21st, this is actually, I think, a really big deal. We have both Pluto and the sun moving into Aquarius. So you have the luminary, the thing that brings light to all things in the sky, the sun, moving into Aquarius, accompanied by the planet that rules over death and rebirth and transformation and is one of like it's a heavy hitter. I don't want to say dark, but it can really bring up those depths. And then they're both entering into Aquarius, which is an air sign, out of Capricorn, which is an earth sign. So we're already going to notice like a very big, just energetic underlying shift from Capricorn season to Aquarius season. I think the major theme here is it's a very future focused, community focused, groups, grassroots, movements. It can get to a certain degree political. You've got that justice aspect in there. It's about people living and working together and building a future and moving forward. Aquarius also has no issue, as we all know, there's no issue being different and or walking their own path. There is a lot of really interesting Aquarius individuals who find themselves at the middle of really big revolutionary movements. And I don't throw the word revolutionary around very often, but we do also have Uranus going direct. And Uranus can really just be sudden and sporadic and life-altering and pivotal changes occurring. So this Pluto and Sun both going direct into Aquarius definitely gives... I'm nervous to talk about the world stage because it's definitely not been smooth sailing. And there looks to be even more opportunity for revolution.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like with this shadow of limitation here, as well as like, a lot of people in the world have been feeling very limited by what's going on in the world. And to like find and remember to find that balance between like, the structure and being unstructured, being too rigid, and like really like grounding into like the realism of what's going on, and to trust that, so you don't become too flighty or you don't become too extreme. I think that that's important when we have this kind of energy, is like also with that like Capricorn energy being in there as well too, like previously is like, like slow and steady wins the race. Let's stay grounded. Let's stay balanced, is a good energy to be bringing into this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be a hard one to maintain, but something that we should really, I would suggest holding in the forefront of our minds. Yeah. Aquarius can be quite extreme. And in a good way and in a bad way, right? They're very intellectual people who can get onto a specific tangent. This archetype as a whole loves to pursue, it's a fixed air sign. It loves to pursue deeply information, and it just wants to get to some semblance of truth, right? Of course, we know there's subjective truths and trolley law, but that is the archetype of a mad wizard locked in a tower, gladly alone for 10 years on one topic because they're into it. You combine that with the Sun and the Pluto and their intentions for the future and for community, it can be really powerful. We can look at the different areas in our lives that are going to be going through death and rebirth cycles when Pluto is in Aquarius, and then just basically add a spotlight to it, make it like main stage. It's a big aspect. How are we showing up in community? I think a dissonance that occurs is like a lot of what's going on in this world, we know better. And I think Pluto in Aquarius and the Sun in Aquarius is going to give us an opportunity to pivot some things so that our actions can be more aligned with our knowing, our deep knowing, and the ability to apply some of these truths that Aquarius has discovered, dreams of. There's some idealism involved as well. Of course, you can't get too far into the future without having a risk of too much idealization of different things. But yeah, it's definitely dreaming, forward-looking energy. But what if we could do this? And maybe we can do this. And if we just radicalized everything, and there's going to be some big shifts. It's definitely big shifty energy, which can be really exciting as long as we're aware of it moving into it and keep, like you said, perspective. Another note on Pluto, though, is it's not going to be in Capricorn, it's not going to be in Aquarius for the duration of 2024. So this is a side note and goes way beyond January, but these outer planets like Pluto take a very long time to move, of course. So Pluto has been in Capricorn for a long time and has dipped its toe into Aquarius. And this is, I think, its final transition into Aquarius, and it will dip its toe back into Capricorn come September of 2024. And then it's going to be in Aquarius for years. And it's really important to pay attention to that, because if you look at the upheaval that's been going on throughout 2023 and the years to come, how Pluto has been going between Capricorn and Aquarius, Pluto has been rebirthing and destroying everything that Capricorn rules over. So governments, career, work, society, legacy, our impact on the outside world. And it's been playing already between Capricorn and Aquarius. And you can see the state of our world, both micro and macro. You can see that we are in a big transitional period. So keep an eye on Pluto, pay attention to maybe where this is occurring in your own chart, and then add that perspective to the macro as well, what's going on with the world around us. Pluto will be making its home in Aquarius shortly, but it will have a little revisit back into Capricorn again. So
Yeah, this is a pretty big transit actually. I've heard some certain astrologers talking about, as we move into the age of Aquarius, as like a collective, is like that Pluto moving in is a really big piece of that. And I know like that there's like no really fine delineation between the the age of the Piscean age and then moving into Aquarius in the collective, but like that's kind of maybe something to consider too, is like this could be a big collective shift at this time.
Yes, and I think it's a good framework to view it as opportunity, right? Like if you look at people who become millionaires, like there's been quite a few people who become millionaires in the middle of a recession because they realize what is needed in that moment. They are aware and present, and they solve problems, and they adapt, and they grow, and it works because it's the right time and the right place. So don't view this as everything's going to get harder and, oh no, more chaos. And it's just like, okay, find your center. Who are you? This is planning time in January. What do you need to bring to this world? What future do you want to dream about? What do you want to create? How do you want to help people move forward, right? Like we can get lost in the macro, and believe me, it's chaotic, and you should pay attention to what's going on. I'm not at all encouraging you not to be engaged, not be informed, not to show up and participate. No, do that. But also like, who are you? How are you moving forward? What are you going to do with this information? Center in. Because if you just get lost out there, how can you be effective? So that's the Capricorn plan energy that's going to come in here.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Like being able to take what's happening in the world stage, reflect it back, and be like, okay, what does this mean to me? What is this showing me? What can I shift within me to be in more alignment, to create more of whatever you're trying to create, whether it's joy or love or something external and physical. Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, and we see it in the gene keys too. Like you said, there's that highest emanation of the 61st gene key, sanctity. Then you've got the 60th gene key, justice, and then you've got emanation. It's like, okay, what is sacred to you? What is your truth? What do you want to emanate out into the world? And is it in alignment with justice? And what parts of, I know sacrifice for the 19th gene key as a city can be a little daunting. It's hard to understand how sacrifice can be such a high vibrational word, but it really is beautiful. And side note, if you are not familiar with the gene keys, it's a synthesis by Richard Rudd, and it is exceptional. I often in my life, I know Alana and I talk about this frequently, but I view it as a masculine framework that allows me to intuitively and emotionally let my feminine flow through different vibrations and helps structure my understanding of an internal journey. And looking into these gene keys will add a lot of insight. They have the Pulse calendar on the Gene Key website. So if you're wanting more about the gene keys, or if this is serving some part of you, would recommend checking it out more.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's based off of the 64 hexagrams in the I Ching mixed with human design. So there's astrology kind of innately in there. It's a beautiful transmission for sure. And I think that it's been a big part of my spiritual process, and allows me to get a feel for what's going on out there too, much like astrology that way.
And how he frames sacrifice, emanation, and justice, it's like, gives me hope. I'm excited about the way we have the opportunity to show up for January, right? Like this really is, I mean, I'll share a bit of the way I do New Year's resolutions, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, in a podcast or something. But man, I start January as a micro of the entire year, which is the macro. So like I do my best to live as many days in the row in January to the frequency that I want my entire year to be. Put my best foot forward. If I want to be this type of person this year, if I'm going to set these type of goals this year, I'm going to try and anchor that in now, not give myself, oh, I'm going to need to do this 7 months down the road. Because if you add too much time in there, you can actually make it harder for yourself to create or achieve certain goals. So I get really clear on the little micro steps that get me to my macro goal, the small and the big. And then I just anchor in that frequency of achieving that thing as best as I can right in this moment. And I think collapsing that can really give you hope. Starts you off January with some light in your eyes, some hope, light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And I feel like January always kind of has that kind of fresh vibe, which is cool. That, yeah, I love that.
Who doesn't like a fresh start? And I don't know if that's just me and my like for Capricorn placements, but I do love me a new year. I love me a Monday. I love the first of the month. It's just so much potential, so many places to plan.
Well, and like you said too, is like if you wait too long, you know, you're going to miss the boat on being able to utilize these energies and harness them for like your benefit, right? And it's so easy to fall back into old ways and to, you know, if we don't get clear, if we're just constantly being unconscious, or if we're, you know, constantly being an ego, if we're constantly, you know, living from maybe even the shadow frequencies, we could say, from the gene keys, and not really like focusing on the gifts or focusing on the opportunities that are presented in these moments. Yeah, you might have to wait another year before you can kind of utilize that energy again, or you're kind of going to be swimming upstream trying to fight the energies that are working with you at that time if you miss the boat.
I often view astrological alignments like this, like those little accelerator strips in Mario Kart.
Yeah.
You're working your way around the year, around the track, but like if you happen to line up and like get on that little like swift little thing, just shoots you forward because you're working with the flow of the river. Like you're jumping on board. You're going in the same direction as the cosmic juju is pushing you, and you get a lot further, in my humble opinion, as opposed to doing it on your own. Of course, you can always find ways to work with and move with and make progress, and there's a gift in every shadow, which I think is another lesson.
I like that analogy.
If you can get on that little Mario Kart speed strip, you going faster. Making dreams come true over here.
Absolutely.
I feel pretty complete with the general overview. I would love to do a bit of some tarot, or talk about the tarot forecast that we did for 2024 at large. We pulled a card for each of the months, and January's card was the Seven of Swords. And looking at the Seven of Swords now and seeing the astrology that is going on, I did not know. We did not check out the astrology when we did the tarot forecast, but like, she is spot on. And I do tarot all the time. I have been so in the astrological world for years, but it still always gets me so excited when I see, like, I'm like, oh man, magic is real. It all makes sense. The puzzle pieces are clicking in. It's like, wow, this is really the Seven of Swords energy. It's that sticking with the confusion. If you look at the imagery of Seven of Swords, I don't have him. Maybe I have him here. I don't have it pulled out. If you look at the imagery of Seven of Swords, there is a man. Oh, he is trying to focus.
There we go.
There we go. Look how much he's got going on. To me, he looks a little like he might be lost in a forest. Doesn't really know what direction to go. He's got all these ideas, all of this potential. And a lot of this comes down to making all of his internal ideas work outside of him in the actual 3D. What are you moving forward with? What are you leaving behind? A big word here is discernment, which is very applicable for the energy with that Mercury retrograde and the square to Neptune, the beginning of the year. We're trying to move forward, and if we're not willing to cut things out of our lives or get clearer on what we're moving forward with, we have potential to be running down entirely random pathways that don't serve us or aren't in alignment with what our intentions were. So it's really interesting to see that, without a doubt, we have that opportunity for confusion and being a little lost at the beginning. But it's also a good warning for us to know that, like, hey, we have the opportunity to practice finding our internal center and calling in on that internal guidance to get clear and cut some things away.
So cool how that aligned.
I know. I saw it and I was like, magic universe of ours. Look at it doing the things it does.
Yeah. Hone in that message, right? Driving it home.
Well, I mean, and if you even look at the shadow frequencies of struggle at the beginning of January,
yeah,
that guy's struggling. He's struggling. He's but then he starts to choose the swords. You can't do every idea. You can't bring everything into reality. Not everything is meant to be brought into reality. So you have to have that internal guidance. You have to check back in. Alana, what did we decide to do for tarot? Did we decide we're going to pull a subconscious card and a conscious card? Do you want to describe a bit about what that means while I shuffle?
Absolutely. So the subconscious card we're kind of looking at is going to be the aspects that maybe aren't in your awareness, that might be maybe also working against you, that you're not aware of, that haven't been brought light to. So just some things that, like, you know, you might want to consider and take into account about this month, in relation, obviously, to the Seven of Swords. And then, of course, the conscious element is going to be more the energies that we already know that we're working with, the light energies, and how we can utilize those to propel us forward as well in maybe a more positive aspect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when we did the year at a glance spread, the Seven of Swords is just the overarching theme for the month.
Mm-hmm.
And then these two pulls are going to give you an energy, like Alana said, to kind of steer clear from the subconscious, the shadow frequency, I suppose, things to become aware of, bring light to, and I like to call them like tripping hazards, like potential, like, ooh,
Yeah,
lost balance there. Could have done maybe a little differently there.
exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, that's exactly it, how I feel about it. Our subconscious card, and what we're going to want to bring some light to, be aware of, or in other words, a tripping hazard, is going to be the Queen of Pentacles for January 2020. It's a beautiful card. I love this card. It's interesting because there's particular cards in the deck where you build a personal relationship, and I really love this card. So it's always a perspective change for me when I see it in a more challenging, tripping hazard sort of position.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that comes up for you?
Well, I think for me, like off the get-go, is thinking of even bringing it back to that gene key with the shadow of greed, even, really, right? Like that egotistical kind of piece is like, what are our reasons behind what we're creating? What are we being mindful that could be that could be something that's working against us, is really getting clear, and it's sifting through more of the subconscious. It's not so much just like being in the mind, but like your whole being is like finding that alignment within. Yeah.
Oh, the fact that there's the shadow of greed, and then it's just crazy. It's crazy. I'm getting really excited about it. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening here. If you look at the positive associations, which is often how my approach is, I'll look at the polarity of the card and then intuit what's going on for me. But if you look at the positive associations of the Queen of Pentacles, like number one thing is she's a generous, warm-hearted, nurturing earth mother who is dependable and sensual and just caregiver. She's just so caring. If you flip that coin, the opposite side of those traits can be things like materialistic, spoiled, shallow, stingy, or maybe like penny pinching, like prudish. Is that the maybe? I don't know. But I think the way that this really plays out when it comes to a subconscious or a shadow card, something to be aware of in January, is going into the extremes of the positive traits and falling way out of balance and becoming that kind of over codependent, over caring person. Or, like we talked about, that shadow of greed, that materialistic, spoiled, this is mine, I'm not sharing, I've worked so hard for this. And I think that's a lot of the energy around this, especially the beginning of January. It loosens up a little bit at the end of January, but it's a lot of like, look how far I've come. I have struggled. I'm carrying all of these swords, and I have finally made it to this point. I don't want to share. I don't want to lose or have to choose. I don't want to like sacrifice now for benefit later. Like, it can be hard to not have that emotional grasp on things that we have like bled for on our journey, And I think that can be the warning when it comes to the Queen of Pentacles is giving, being generous is one of the most incredible gifts. Also, this is after Christmas, where we usually just spend a lot of money and maybe weren't as aware of our finances as we could have been or should have been. And we might be a little bit more strapped for cash. And it's really, I think, an opportunity to look at some of our inner attitudes around materialism, being spoiled, maybe being a bit shallow in motivation. And then with the shadow of greed, we have that to consider as well.
Absolutely. And you can even tie this into like, the setting of intentions is like, what are, I think a lot of us, like you said, we can set some really lofty goals is like, but like really questioning is like, is this goal really for the highest good of all, for good for the collective, good for all, or is it just good for me? And does it just kind of seem like, well, I want $1 million, so like give me $1 million, like, is it entitled, like what kind of, is it in flow? Is it really grounded in reality? Because if you set these kind of goals that aren't really balanced, like you said, is like, they're not going to probably take root, and, you're going to be disappointed, and it's not going to be, it's not really going to sprout, when that full moon comes and we're actually able to reap our harvest from like the intentions that we set in the new moon. And yeah, it's
I love that you brought that in. Yeah, such a good thing to consider, especially, because of the new moon. This is very much so that Earth Mother. What are you planting? What are you growing? And your motivations behind what you're asking for or what you're working for. Such a good point. We can get very materialistic in those wishes and dreams. I want all of this money. I want all of this. Like, but why?
Yeah.
Why do you need all of that money? Do you think that you can't benefit the world now without that money? Do you think you are not worthy without that money? This is a call to not be shallow. Why? Why are you setting these intentions? And if you have like no criticism or judgment here, if you have done that line of questioning and you have contemplated and you're good on your intentions, creme de la creme, get it. Like, get in there. But it's definitely something to consider as your motivation as to why and what seeds you're planting in that kind of new year, new moon energy, because they will come to fruition in the following full moon. So you get to, I guess, reap what you sow as well.
Absolutely. For the conscious aspect now.
I get excited and then, I keep on throwing cards because I'm like flailing.
That's awesome.
It's actually, I'll usually shuffle over at tables for this reason. So I'm not tossing tarot cards around. Yes, the conscious. Pulling in a card. I usually call this things to embody, or I'll call it a green light card. If I see it in someone else, I'm like, ooh, I want to be around that person more. Oh, wow, look at a good example of like the energy I should embody or energy to move towards. These are like signposts from the universe being like, yeah, on the right path, do this, you're doing good, get it.
Could also be the things that you know and already utilize well, and like the gifts you already have that you can kind of lean on as well.
Yes, totally. Definitely both internal and external. So if you see those energies within yourself, move towards them and embody them. If you see them without you, embodied in somebody else, it's an opportunity to not be jealous or envy, but to be like, wow, that's a good example. I'm going to model that too. So, oh, and we have her. Man, 2 court cards. Look at us go.
Focus. There we go.
Loading. There we go.
King of Wands.
The King of Wands. And we got that full moon in Leo, and we got that wand, that fire element. I feel like as soon as you brought up that new moon, full moon dynamic, I felt it. I felt it in my bones.
So we got kind of a more spiritual aspect now.
King of Wands. Yeah. And I love that you also just said about things that you want to internal, right? Like things that you want to embody. Of course, so positive, this is such a positive card, in my opinion. It's very easy to see like the light that shines from the King of Wands, the King of passion, of spirit, of what makes life worth living things, which is all falling under the suit of the Wands. This energy, this archetype of this person who is embodying the King of Wands is powerful, bold, inspiring, vitality, dramatic, authentic, charismatic, which is all happening, which especially, this is too perfect because we do have a full moon in Leo, and this is very Leo archetypal energy. And man, the new moon in Capricorn being the Queen of Pentacles, and now the full moon in Leo being the King of Wands is just immaculately couldn't have been planned that well. Wow.
It's true, right? It's really cool.
Yeah.
Tarot's magical.
So the energy I see, I know, and because astrology is built into it, everything's built into it. This is why I love doing, I'm so excited for these forecasts when we have like all of the different modalities, because you get to see the strings that pull the universe are all connected by the little subtleties. It's exciting. If you can tell, my energy just went up like 5 octaves. I'm like, oh my God, look at it, it's working. So the King of Wands, what we were going to embody with the King of Wands, for me, this feels like setting an example and leading by example, being like in alignment with like practicing and walking the talk, practicing what you preach. If you say you're so spiritually enlightened. If you say you're X, Y, and Z, do it. This is the time to do it. Show up that way. So set an example. Being brave. It's scary to set an example. It's scary to lead from the heart, like that lion heart energy, that open-hearted, I'm going to show up fully and be myself and let my vital energy flow, let the light that I am shine. That involves bravery because it risks vulnerability. So I'm not saying this is easy, but it is a call forward to embody that in January for yourself, right? It's also maybe a call to master things like your art or your trade or your passion so that you have that comfortability and then therefore that authority on that topic. You're not just blowing smoke out of your ass. You know what you're talking about. You've honed this. You've mastered. You're the king. You have reached this by taking that step-by-step perseverance approach from the new moon in Capricorn type of energy. It's master and hone in so that you can show up and be proud and be the center of the stage and charismatic while still being authentic. You're in alignment when you shine brightly and you are being honest in your expression. And with that being brave portion, it ties into maybe one of my last points on it is you gotta be willing to take that risk because you believe in yourself. And that comes with that authenticity and that walking the mile in your shoes and knowing that you know your craft, knowing that you know what you know, that you've struggled from the bottom, now you're here. And being brave and authentic and showing up with that, that's a risk. You got to risk it for the biscuit. And I think all of that can be really embodied when we are looking to the King of Wands. So like we mentioned already, this can be things that you want to embody. This can be someone else in your life that you see and you're like, wow, that person's really got it. I'm going to hang out with them more so I can get some of that trickle down effect. I'm going to associate with those types of people. The reason I keep on bringing that up is because they are two court cards, and court cards in tarot do often represent people. Not always, and they are not gender specific or age specific, but a court card often speaks to the fact that it's either an energy you want to embody or it's someone outside of you that you see as a good example to follow, someone you want to associate with, someone you want to learn from. Yeah, so that's exciting to have that light brought into the January effect here.
Absolutely. I really feel that it's like I love that like piece about the passions and spirit, and I think that it's also important, even like bringing this in, this aspect of like when you are setting your intentions, if we like apply this for the whole month, is like also, you know, lean into your passions, trust your passions, you know, like you don't need to punish yourself into change. You can find creative and curious and kind of more connected to spirit ways of manifesting and moving your life and creating your life. And like we don't often consider those, but we often like think like, oh, like I'm creating something outside of myself, but like the way you're creating is a way to embody the changes. And that's a, you know, those little tiny shifts can be in your thoughts and in the way that you show up spiritually and in your heart, like in that bravery, like you said, is also, I think, being called forward with this too.
And you know, yeah, this just brings to mind. So as you're saying that, I'm seeing like the queen is here, right? Like, and in the hierarchy of a court or a regional run country, when you have kings and queens, what is that?
Monarchy.
What is that word? There we go. When you have kings and queens, I'm like, I live in Canada. I should know this. Anyway, when you have a queen, she's lesser than or lower on the hierarchy than the king is. And it's interesting to me too, that's like the subconscious and what we're going to avoid. And I almost see like there has to be a certain level of risk taken from that greedy, I'm going to hang on to, I'm going to struggle through and stick with what I have. And like, I don't want to lose anything to risk or take a chance or be outside of my comfort zone. And all of those things are required to reach that level of kingdom. As you operate from an aligned, authentic, impassioned place, you gotta risk it to get there. You have to risk letting something go, risk change, risk movement, be brave, and then you can be more in alignment to dare to dream and set intentions from that heart on fire place. What brings you life when you're setting an intention? Don't punish yourself for having the struggles you have had, like you said, right? It's that perspective switch from more of a lack mentality, which I think is the shadow aspect of the Queen of Pentacles. It's like that lack mentality into that co-creator energy that is the King of Wands. He's here, he knows what he brings to the table, and he's ready to play in co-creating the life of his dreams, the world that everyone can be fed, loved, and sheltered in. And he's here to show up and do that. He's bringing all his gifts to the table. So I think if we have that in mind when we're setting our goals for 2024, that makes me excited to see the world we build and the year we have.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I love that. It's really cool to see that that dance between that masculine and that feminine, and that like the shadow side, and also even just the masculine being like kind of more connected to the 3D, as well as like, there's this like kind of grounding in nature with this card as well too, and really, like you said, things really aligning, but also like this like connection to this deep trust of like the universe and like what you're creating, and yeah, it's quite the spread that we had for this month, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on. I'm so happy with the way our first monthly forecast went. I feel good. I feel alive. I feel like there's a lot of little juicy bits in there that might help steer us and guide us. I know I'm taking some of those things under advisement for myself now when I go into plan and prep what I'm doing.
Absolutely. No, it feels really good to get this like little glimpse, and it's like exciting to work with certain energies and to be aware of others, and kind of feels like you said, like we got our umbrella, we're ready for what's going to show up next month.
That's exactly it. I feel like a Girl Scout. I'm like, okay, give me my sash, give me my little, I got my little snacks, I got my boots on, my little hat. I'm ready to go. I'm going to do my best.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. I could see you in a little Girl Scout outfit. Out in nature.
Yeah, it's my life. It's my life. It's me. What are we doing today? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the January 2024 energetic forecast. Alana, it has been a slice and a pleasure as always. We will actually be releasing a video, I believe, next week after this goes live, all about setting intentions. Maybe the week after that, 2 weeks away from my. In January, we're going to be releasing a video about setting intentions and working with intentions. As a native Capricorn with some experience on goal setting, I feel like this is a topic that's going to be really juicy, and I'm really excited to dive into it with all of you. Subscribe and let us know in the comments below what you are most excited to see play out and or work with for the month of January, and we will see you all back here very shortly with another video. Bye-bye, Alana. Goodbye, everybody. May the force be with you.